Ya YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another Fantasy Grounds tutorial, and this time it's for Fantasy Grounds Unity. And I actually have it launched right here, but before we actually show that, I want to go into here real quick. Where does this window pop up, just to make sure? Oh, right there. That is not good. Let's move that window way out of the way. So before we get started, what I wanted to show you is how to actually acquire Fantasy Grounds Unity. So if you go to fantasygrounds.com, you don't have to have this home PHP, just fantasygrounds.com or www.fantasygrounds.com. You will go to the website. You scroll down to about right here. Now they've separated. It used to be only Fantasy Grounds Classic was here, which is what they've called the older version. Fantasy Grounds Unity is early access. That's very important to note. That means if you do get this, or if you're watching my videos and there are issues with freezing or crashing or something like that, this is early access. So that is to be expected here and there. And if you're hosting campaigns and stuff, this might not be, if it's a big campaign, might not be the best thing for you to do. You can also do Fantasy Grounds Classic. To join a campaign, you generally only need the free version. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But if we click on the FGU, Fantasy Grounds Unity, I want to call it Ultimate, but it's Unity, Early Access, we go to the page ever so quickly. Some elevator music. It does seem to be kind of slow at pulling up the page. I don't know if that's because lots of people are accessing it. But here's the thing to note. It is available for everyone. It used to be for the early access originally was only available to the Kickstarter backers. And I just missed that by one day. Otherwise, I would have totally jumped on it. But as you can see, this is early access open beta. I can't stress enough that issues that we see in these videos that are upcoming, they are going to be addressed. This is early access, open beta, as it says right there. But if you come down here, you can see there are three types of versions. There's the demo, there's the FGU Standard, and FGU Ultimate. And the biggest difference is with the demo version, you can play on Ultimate, and you get the rule sets for various RPGs automatically. However, if you do either the subscription, which I don't like subscription bases, I like one-time pricing. But as you can see here, if you do the subscription, it's $3.99 monthly. It's a great way to try it out. With the subscription of Standard, you can have other Standard players or Ultimate players join your table, but you can actually host your own game. Whereas with Demo, you can only join games that are hosted by Ultimate. And then Ultimate, anybody can join your game. So you can check it out, the $3.99 monthly for a subscription, or $9.99 monthly for the Ultimate subscription. Or if you are like me and prefer a one-time price, you can see that right now it's on a special. There's a discount for 10% off on the Standard version. So you just pay one time, $35.10, bam, it's yours for life. Or one time for the Ultimate version, which is $134, also 10% off, and that is yours for life. However, if you're joining a game, as long as it's an Ultimate version, the DM is Ultimate, all you need is the Windows or Mac, depending on which one you have. You just leave the area that has the license key blank, and then it will be considered free. The difference between Ultimate and Standard is, once again, it's your license key, and the biggest difference right here is this can host cannot host games for demo players. However, I believe it will do one. So if you own the standard and someone in your house also owns or has the demo, I believe you can actually host the game for one demo player. At least it seemed to do that for me, where the Ultimate has everything else, plus you can host games for demo and standard. So hopefully that clears things up. I'm not going to download it right now because I already have it installed, because I don't want to waste time with that. So we're going to go ahead and close this window. So once you get Fantasy Grounds installed, you just double click on the icon on your desktop and you'll be pulled up with this little guy, the FG Update Engine. So that's FG Ultimate Pedate Engine. No, I guess it's just Fantasy Grounds Update Engine. And you'll basically, if you're logged in, it'll actually have your name right here, your username. This log button here will simply pull up the log file of whatever's going on here. Then you'll also have these three buttons down here. There will be an update. This takes a while, so I'm not going to click it. However, what that will do is go out and check everything, update. But before you do that, you might want to go into here and make sure you have things set. So if we go into settings, you can see that you have three tabs. You have your basic. This is where you put your license key. This is where you put your SmiteWorks username and your password, and then you can click log in. You can see this key that I put in is actually a valid standard key. Once Steam is updated where I can actually upgrade my Ultimate version in Steam, I'll have the Ultimate as well. But once you click log in, it will tell you that you're logged in. If it's installed, you'll have the option to uninstall. Under account, this is if you want to link your Steam or if you want to link your Paizo account. And under advanced here, this is where you can choose where it actually installs your app itself. And this one down below is your data directory. This is where it will have all your campaigns, all your modules, all your extensions, everything else. Now, the default location for this is actually going to be in your user's profile app data. However, I like to keep everything together. So as you can see, I have Fantasy Grounds right here installed on my D drive. And then I created a folder in there called data, and that's where I keep all that stuff, like my campaigns, modules, extensions, all that fun stuff. Then you can also come down here and choose what type of build you want, whether it's the live build that they're doing, if it's a dev, test, or I guess that's previous or something. It's recommended that you just stay on live. Once you've done all that, you can go ahead and click save, and it will do some magic, and then it'll pop back basically up to this screen. Once that's all done, you can click the Launch Fantasy Grounds. Now, I actually have a second version of it. No, I don't. I do, kind of. So you click Launch Fantasy Grounds, and you'll be greeted by this window right here. If there are updates, I think this almost always turns red, because I've done updates and then redid it again and it turned red. So maybe they're just saying, hey, you might want to check for updates. But generally, maybe the whole button turns red or something, or maybe there actually are updates. But we're not going to do that. This is the check for updates button. Now, if you're familiar with the old version of Fantasy Grounds, right in this area we had like a little folder. It is now moved here. This will basically open up that same folder that I had open before, but it takes you to the data. So as you can see, we're in Fantasy Grounds. Here's the data, and this is all on my D drive, and this is where the campaigns are, docs, extensions, images, modules, and all that fun stuff. So if you ever need to get to it quickly, that's where you go. These little lines here, it looks like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them? This will take you to the console. If you're having issues, things not loading properly, you can come in here and maybe get some information. You can clear it, you can copy it, and you can close it. This obviously is going to be upgrade. This is not upgrade as in for updates. This is upgrade as in I want to move from standard to ultimate. So I imagine, I'll let you know once I get ultimate version, this button will disappear once I have ultimate, because there will be no higher upgrades than that. Settings will take you once again back to that screen we were at before. the little pop-up where you can set up your location for the files and all that fun stuff. And we already talked about that. This whole section here in the center is more things that are going to open up web pages, the forums, their Discord, the frequently asked questions, email, web store, Steam store, user manual, basic guides, game systems, and then of course the release notes. The next part we're going to talk about are these two parts, and they're pretty important. So there's the join campaign, where if you are hosting a game yourself, this is just showing the history. So if you're hosting a game yourself, then people will come in here. They might type in your GM name to see if they can find you, or if they're given an IP port. This is if it's locally, not in the cloud. So as you can see here, there are lots and lots of games out in the interwebs. Many of them have little password locks on them. I think that's what that is. I'm imagining that's a lock and not a little person. And then some people actually have theirs open up where you could simply join. Now, I don't know if any of these are, and I don't know necessarily if any of these are ones that people are actually allowing people to join, but it does tell you what they're running. I don't know. It doesn't seem to tell you specifically if it's a 5e or something like that. It just seems to be showing you all the ones out there. So you do have that option too. So when you, and we'll get in that in just one second. Let's go ahead and close out the join campaign. Now let's go into host campaign. This is where you create your own. And this is how you can set it up so that you can create your own. Now in the older version, there was actually a host and a create new campaign. Or load and load and new campaign. They were individual buttons. Now it's all been I cannot talk today. Has now all been combined in just the host campaign button. So you can click on host campaign. Here is where you would say I want a new one. So if we wanted a new one, we give it a campaign name. Let's just call this test. Let's call this tutorial. Tutorial. I don't think I had a O. Tutorial. Tutorial. Okay, I think that's right. So as you can see, you can choose between the rule sets. This is how the game, dice rules and stuff like that. Core RPG is just a generic one. That's the one that basically everything uses Core RPG, but then these other rule sets will actually add additional things. Like 5e will have advantage and disadvantage. Where maybe some of your others don't. So if we were doing a tutorial here, we could say 5e. Then we have an area here where we could say we want to, well, this area up here is where the details go. So we could give it a password. We could say who the GM is, T4ZZM, 4NN, so Tasman. We could say we want it hosted in the cloud. So that's where if we click on that, it will actually put in that other list that showed the ones in the cloud. You can also make it public or private. Maybe that's what the little person icon was. I'm not 100% sure. By the way, just so I clear one thing up, I was not on the Kickstarter, as I mentioned before, and because of that, I've only got to play with this now for a few days. So this is actually kind of going to be a learning experience for both of us, from videos I've seen, from what I've actually played with and learned about it, and so on and so forth. So I look at it as both are going to get to do a whole lot of work, learning here. So anyway, I'm not going to put a password on this, but I'm going to set it to LAN, and you'll notice the private public go away. Then you have your extensions. So if you want to incorporate special fonts that it comes with, you'll want to have the Wizards font here. And then this FR, you might think, oh, those are French fonts. I don't want French fonts. Well, personally, I don't know what French fonts are, but this is actually Forgotten Realm fonts. So you can click on that. This right here, you will not see unless you've downloaded from the forum a thing that makes the fonts larger. It's called 14-point clear font. This is an extension someone created. The themes here, these are all what the overall theme of the thing is. I like the simple gray because it keeps everything nice, tight, and clean. The dungeon one is cool, but it like has these big old dragon heads and stuff like that that just take up real estate. And when I have, like right now I'm recording this at 1280 by 720, so you can see everything. Even though my monitors go way above that, what I found is by doing it at this resolution, most people will be able to see everything that I'm actually talking about on screen and be able to see words and stuff like that. Then this one right here is also another extension that I found on the forums. It's TheoGeek's Improved Criticals, and I really love this one. I'll explain that one later. For this tutorial series, I'm going to use my clean one, which is Simple Gray. We'll go ahead and have these fonts all loaded up. Basically what these do is give you the scripts for Elven and Dwarvish and Draconic and various scripts. The caricatures. I don't know what you'd want to call it, but we'll definitely go over that. So now that I have that, and I probably should have done this a little different. I should have just started this new campaign right away, because this is going to take a while to load. Well, that's okay, because we can talk about the other things. So I'm going to go ahead and start this one, and while that's loading, I'm going to pull up this one right here. We're going to talk about the host campaign window. So this is the host campaign window. I don't know that there's a refresh. Doesn't look like it. But we need to wait for, in fact, I'm going to move this one that is loading, which I can't pull up now. So that's okay. Oh, there it is. So I'm going to put this hopefully over in another monitor so I can watch it when it comes up. So when you are hosting a campaign, you've already created the new one. If you want to go in and do stuff with it, you can actually change whether it's going to be cloud or LAN at this point. And then you can click on them. Right now we don't see the other one because I'd have to reload this, and I'm not worried about that at the moment. But once again, you can also, at one point I can do it on the LAN, and then later on I can move it to the cloud and make it private so people can't see it. And then set the password and who the GM is and all that fun stuff. You always, oh good, it's done loading. That was actually pretty quick. You can also go in at any time and change when you're loading which of these things you want available. So let's go ahead and go to join campaign, because if we go right here, we can see that my DM one, and both of them would DM, technically both of them would be the DM one. But let's go ahead, and now I should be able to just click on this. This is going to be a little confusing, but that's okay. So we have localhost testing. I think if I hit refresh, it should turn green. No, that refreshes the bottom one. So I do know that my localhost is up. If not, I could just type in here localhost, and then I could actually connect. And this is just a quick shortcut. So if I take that out and I click start, if we go to the other screen, we should see right here that Tasman just connected, and I'm Tasman. That's going to get a little confusing. But let's go ahead. So we'll let that go ahead and load. Why we do that? So this is going to be our master, or our dungeon master one. So the first thing I like to do is actually go kind of set it up by going into the library here, because I might want to change the layout of these buttons. And you'll notice these buttons are really big. That's because the default scale when you launch is 100. I usually change it to about 85. It makes it a little smaller. The font gets a tiny bit smaller, but it's a trade-off, because the way it works is if we click library here, you can see we have, these are all the buttons that are available. I can click in here and say, oh, I want the background button showing up, and you can see it popped up right down here. So there's different setups. So if I'm creating a character, there's a special button layout called Create PC. We click on that, and now you see I have things that are only related to creating a PC. We have class, background, feats, races, items, skills, and spells. Well, when you're playing a game, you don't necessarily need most of this stuff. So when you're playing a game, not as the GM, you might only need these buttons. You need the character where you select your character. You need notes that you can make based off of what the game is. What's going on in the game. You can take notes of who you meet and stuff like that. Images and maps. This will be images and maps that you play on. This will be the cached copies of those or whatever. There's the story. This is if the story elements are shared, then you'll be able to see story elements. You'll be able to see special NPCs. Generally, this is mostly for a druid. If I click on, well, it's not going to show anything because we don't have any modules loaded yet. So we're going to get to that. Also with items. The new thing, all these buttons are actually pretty much all in the previous version of Fantasy Grounds as well. One of the differences is there used to be a button called tokens, and now it's actually called assets. And it doesn't actually have a flat button like these, which I don't mind, but it just has this leather looking one. So if we click on assets, this is where it keeps all your token icons or token images, your portraits for your characters and stuff, the images that the DM might want to share, and things like that. This is not going to be maps though. So for example, if I went to Sword Coast Players Guide right here, actually I don't know that that's going to open because I think this is cached. Oh, it is. So here you can see these are images from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, and you can pull those up as the DM. Do I just double click it, I think? I can't remember. Or do I drag it? I don't remember. we'll get to that in a minute. So that's where all your different assets are. And the player, if we go into the player, maybe they're loaded up. Yes, they are. We can go ahead and close this. You'll see the player has the same button. Now, as a player, basically, I bounce between the play or the create PC. When I'm creating the PC, I'd obviously have that. When I'm playing, I would have that. Then you'll notice it's not going to work quite right because I'm on the same machine. But you'll notice in here that it has all the modules that I have available to me as a player. You'll notice these have a little web, which means they are coming through being shared from the master. Part of this is because a lot of these things are all copyright. Like the player's handbook, it's copyrighted. So as the GM or the DM, and by the way, I always get really confused saying this, but if I come in here, and you'll see I actually have a lot more in here, only the ones that have this little green that I say allowed and are allowed, the ones that are red do not have that. So for example, you see the Unearthed Arcana DM. This is not allowed by the players. However, if I wanted to override that, I could simply drag that over and drop it on it, or I could simply click the button. But if I click the button like that, now if we go back over to our player, I probably have to close it and reopen it so it loads. You'll actually see there's the Unearthed Arcana for the player. There's the DM one. So you kind of want to be careful what you allow them to have, because this might give them things that they're not necessarily supposed to, or they just don't need, basically, being a player. So let's go back over to the GM real quick, and we'll go undo that one so they can't have it. Now you'll also notice in here that there are states for these different things. There's a load button, and there's an icon here that kind of looks like a, well, it's supposed to be a book that's closed. So as the dungeon master, what I would want to do is come in here. Well, I might want to have the resource of the Dungeon Master's Guide. So what you'll notice here, for example, the biggest example here is if I go back into here, and I'm going to set it to all, so I have all buttons available to me. But if I come in here and I change, for example, the player's handbook, right? This is allowed. The players are allowed to load it, and this means players are not allowed. So if I load that, you'll see it pop up here once it's done. Now this is a part where it can get a little laggy and seem like things are not working properly, especially if you're the player. Be patient with it. Wait till the book looks like it's open before you start clicking other ones. So with the player's handbook here now, if we go back over to our other dude, they can click on load. Now you'll notice, because this is a cache copy, it's not actually putting the entire, it's not copying an actual book over there. It's giving a cache copy. So now you can see it says it's loaded, right? And if I come in here, first of all, I guess if I come, let's go to play mode. No, let's go to create PC, because that's where that would be. Now if I come in here, you'll actually see I have things from the player's handbook. They're all available to me. The other thing to note is, if I want to look at the player's handbook, if I go to reference manual, this is basically the entire player's handbook, pretty much line for line, and picture and everything that the player's handbook is. Now, to make things nicer, you know, as far as choose a race, it's been all combined into individual components. So if I want to choose a race, now all I have to do is choose my race. If I want to know more about a specific race, I simply click the little icon on the side, and this will give me the information that's in the player's handbook about that race. So as you can see, here's an elf. If I was doing classes, for example, let's say a druid, this also gives you all the information on leveling your druid, and we can click right here. Well, that's the wrong one. That's the races. Right there. So if we wanted a druid, we could click on that, and you'll see it has down here the tables on your different levels and what bonuses you get per level, your spell casting and cantrips, and all that information, how your character, you know, things you get, proficiencies, what you get when you start, the different features you get as you progress, your circle information, because druids get circles, you know, and then the ones that are associated with this book. So circle of the land, circle of the moon. Those are the ones that are available in the player's handbook. If we loaded other books that have additional ones, such as the Sword Coast's Adventurer's Guide and things like that, it would have additional ones. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out real quick is you can also get custom modules made by other users. So Rob Tui, he is a great asset to the community, shall we say. Rob Tui has went and, you know, coded things to make them a little easier. He also redoes modules and things like that. He has a whole group of people that help him, and they actually go through and, you know, transform PDF only modules into Fantasy Ground type modules and stuff. So it's really good. Definitely check him out on the Dungeon Masters Guild, you know, where you can download things. So generally what I like to have is this wild magic. Where's the... Oh, I don't have that. Oh, actually, no, this is a player. See, this gets confusing because I have two up at once. So as the GM or Dungeon Master, I like to have the hit and crit, the 200 crit and fumble tables, the wild magic table, conditions and effects, class features, feats, race traits, and spells. These are ones I like to have. Also, depending on what adventure I'm running, if I'm running, you know, the Adventures League Season 3, not episode, what would it be called? Episode, Adventure 1, maybe? Which is Harriet and Hillsfar. I could click on load there. as a general thing, without buying any stuff, you will have the basic rules, basic players, the SRD stuff. So even without any additional modules that you buy, you can actually play Dungeons and Dragons. You won't have all the classes, you won't have all the races, you won't have all the spells, but it will give you a good sampling. So anyway, let's see. I like to, did I load as the Dungeon Master? I probably want the Dungeon Master's Guide available to me. And of course the Monster Manual, so that I have access to all the stat blocks and stuff of monsters. We have to wait for this thing. So like I said, when you're loading, be very patient. It does take a minute sometimes for these things to load, but once that book comes up, it's loaded and you can move on. The other thing you can do is, if you have, like in my regular Fantasy Grounds, I have like 400 modules, and sometimes scrolling down will actually cause it to lag out a little bit. So this is one thing I recommend to players that are joining, is actually type, you know, HAND for handbook, and then they have a lot less to select from. So if I want the monster manual, I just type monster, and here you can see I have the monster manual. I could do Volo's Guide to Monsters to add additional monsters and such. And once that finishes loading, I think I clicked that before I needed to. There we go. So now we just wait for that. And then, oh, I did click it before. You gotta be patient. Even me. I wasn't being patient, I guess. Alright, so we're at about 30 minutes. I want to try and keep these episodes probably right around the 30-minute mark. And just to get the basic interface, the next episode we're really going to focus in on this side of the interface, your dice, what this little guy is here, and this. Remember when I was talking about fonts and stuff? That's what this stuff is right here. So just a real quick example. For example, if I wanted to be Dwarvish and I wanted to talk in Dwarvish, anyone that speaks Dwarvish will be able to see this translation part. Everyone else only sees this. As the GM, this is part of the reason I always get confused with Dungeon Master and Game Master, is because this always has that little globule that says GM. I usually say DM, but that just confuses me. So as you can see, it does do this. Oh, by the way, did we do SCALE UI 85? Yeah, I did. So I think we're going to end this episode right here. In the next episode, like I said, we're going to talk more about this. We are going to go more into all these buttons and these little buttons up here and all this stuff down here and around and all over the place, what it does. And then I think what we'll actually do is maybe get into creating some characters, and then maybe even running an adventure where I'm just doing everybody. And I think that will help you get to understand more how everything works with this. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord and my other channels. And don't forget about my Great Big Game giveaway. When I hit 1,000 subs on my YouTube channel, I'm giving away 57 Steam games. That averages out to be 1 out of every 20 subs will get a game. And that's it. So until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.